What's the most disturbing thing you've overheard that you were never meant to hear? My great-grandmother, delirious on her deathbed, was talking to herself or a ghost, not sure, but she was saying she was sorry for not protecting you/her. She went on to talk about her only baby daughter used to bang her crib against the wall, and one day my drunk of a great-grandfather got sick of it and slammed her against the wall. She went to check on her and she was limp. She died 18 hours later and my great-grandfather buried her in the backyard. Edit to add, my great-grandfather was a horrible man. He stayed a drunk and beat his remaining children. 2 of the boys, including my grandfather, joined the army to escape the house. I believe he lied about his age to join shortly after his brother joined, and they both ended up in Vietnam. My grandfather was a prisoner of war and received a Purple Heart. They were both lovely men despite their upbringing and their trauma from war. My favorite great-uncle, Henry, lived in a single-wife trailer along the river. The outside was lined with those big chest freezers, and he would hunt big snapping turtles and put them in those freezers with no lid filled with water until the turtle man came to buy them. He would also fill his bathtub with little turtles, probably to sell to pet stores. I don't know, he also smoked a lot of weed and was the friendliest man I ever knew. I think the craziest thing about working with or around elderly women at the ends of their lives is hearing this kind of stuff. It was so common, and the women kept it a secret until they have dementia, either from a fatal illness or Alzheimer's. I found out someone I know might have committed a murder of an adult and definitely committed a record erasure and possibly murder of a preemie baby when she was around 20. She let it slip at age 92. Her neighbor was married off to an abusive drunk who died in a very, very suspicious accident at the steel mill this woman worked as a typist at. The neighbor was pregnant and not showing yet and gave birth on the woman's couch 4 months early. The baby was blue and floppy, and this woman threw the baby into the river near the barge dock, never had a birth certificate or records. The neighbor moved far away and passed herself off as never married, never pregnant. I was able to verify enough of this story that I don't believe it was a demented delusion. My cousin used to work on a memory care ward and had at least one case a week of different old ladies freaking the fuck out during a clothing change or an assisted bath because they were sure they were little girls again and reliving their sometimes assaults their own kids or spouses never knew about. I can't believe just how many elderly women are holding secrets like this. Earlier in my career, I went from school to work with kids with visual impairments, some braille, some tech. I was in a room for kids with intellectual disabilities and vision impairments, waiting for my student to come out of the bathroom. 2 parapros in the room were talking about how they had to watch another student's pants in case they saw blood. One said, "The dad got out of jail, so we have to report if we see blood on her butt." I know they were not talking to me, but I heard. I must have done something with my face because the classroom teacher came over and asked what I'd heard. She told me that the girl's dad raped his daughters but did it anally to prevent pregnancy. While he was in jail, their mom married him so he would be living with them. And the mom was pregnant. I wish I had stood somewhere else that day while I waited for my student. What, how do 2 fucks that sick and degenerate find each other? And what stupid asinine kind of justice system lets that man be back anywhere near those kids? It was a long time ago, but I believe that the mom was moderately cognitively impaired and he was mildly cognitively impaired. But he knew enough to prevent pregnancy with his grape. The first, and only time, my husband and I were visiting our best friend's ex. We were in bed, but I was awake. Our good friend, and their 6-year-old son were also in bed. Heard her ex in the adjacent living room, discussing with a buddy that he would like to take her out, followed with, "I would never hurt the kid, just want to get rid of her." I absolutely knew he was serious and told her when we left the next morning. She is still alive, but I know she changed her habits after that revelation. God, what an absolute scumbag. So sorry to hear that. And ever heard anything remotely like it before or after, thank God. It was decades ago, but I've never forgotten. It was shocking. I stayed awake all night while everyone else slept. Geez, that even sounds creepy. I was traveling back home from a work trip last year, about an hour from boarding the plane. A woman on the seats behind me answered her phone and let out the saddest wail I've ever heard because the person on the other end told her that her son had died. It was extremely sad and weird to think that there were so many witnesses to probably one of the worst moments in her life. I had the same, but we just landed. This couple was already stressed and we were running late. They were basically told they had to leg it to make it to the connecting flight, otherwise they would have a full day of delays. Plane landed, people turned on phone, and I just heard a flurry of dings. She gets a call and gets told her son got into a car accident and didn't make it. As her husband is ushering her out, he gets told, and they just wail while trying to GTFO so they could get home ASAP. Fuck, having to process that on an 18-hour flight would be heartbreaking. One of the things that has stayed with me is how stuck she was in that airport. While the flight was relatively short, all she could do is sit there and wait to be able to get home. It felt unthinkable or almost unnatural that she couldn't leave, but if she lived where we were flying, it would be a 4-hour drive if she was able to get a rental or wait for our flight, and she'd be there in less than an hour once we boarded. When waiting to be moved to the recovery room right after my daughter was born, I heard some woman down the hall give the same sad wail you described. Here I am, the happiest I have ever been in my entire life, and I hear the wail of a woman having the worst moment of her life. I do not know the details, but that kind of cry only comes from the worst of news. I will never forget that sound. My dad, probably drunk, telling me over the phone how he was gonna kill my mom's new boyfriend. He thought I was her. I was 10. That is heartbreaking and something a child should never have to experience. I know it was a while ago, but I hope you're okay. I appreciate it. I am doing okay. This was almost 30 years ago? Goddamn, I'm getting old. But yeah, it was a bad time when that old jerk was in my life, and I'm glad my mom was strong enough to leave him. Well, did he kill him? Can't prove it, but he did end up getting hit by a car about a week or so later. The boyfriend, not my dad. My mom was talking to a cousin late one night. She didn't know I was close enough to hear. I learned that night just how many men in my family were grapists and pedos. Same here. I overheard my mom talking to her sister after my granddad died. They were talking about how they were shocked how they were experiencing grief despite him molesting all 5 girls in the family. Starting from toddlers to teen years. That was my first experience of being totally blindsided. We have a large wholesome family, and we all looked up to our grandparents as good people in their long marriage as relationship goals. I honestly felt disgusted and anger towards my grandmother. I have no idea how she didn't know. If she's anything like my grandmother, she knew, but was too broken to do anything about it. I think this was the case. I was at a dance club in Mexico once. I was headed to the bathroom, but there were a ton of people crowding the entrance and they were quietly talking in a single conversation with each other. I do not speak Spanish. I figured it was just a line, so I queued up behind the group. Another local guy lined up behind me and after a few minutes tapped me on the shoulder. He and I had the following conversation. Him, do you speak Spanish? Lo siento, no English. These guys are planning on killing someone and are worried that you're listening to them. You should leave right now. So that was pretty scary. What happened? Did you leave? Not a cop, by the way. I thanked the dude and immediately walked back to my group of friends. I decided to just act like a dumb American tourist and speak obvious, loud English. As I was walking away, I heard the guy that helped me out start talking to one of the guys in the group. My guess is that he was actually helping me more, along the lines of, that gringo doesn't know shit. The group of people left the club after a few minutes and never paid me any attention. And then I was able to pee, which was nice. But also, I think someone got killed immediately after that, which was not nice. One of my friends was killed in action. A few days later I overheard that when his remains were collected, they were basically scooping into a stuffed sack, the bag you stuff a sleeping bag into, and hosed off the rest. The guy who related it was traumatized over the fact he had to reach into that sack to try to find his dog tags. The two talking didn't know we'd known each other for years. Any vet should know how small the world is in the military too. You gotta be careful with who you say things like that to because they could have the most obscure connection to each other. We were kids, and he was in a moment. To be honest, I don't even think he knew I was there. Outside, near the hooch, in the dark, by the smoke pit. Was in the Middle East and driving through some little forward operation base, and we got tasked to carry some remains back to the airfield. I heard it was one of our guys, and then they set a box in the back of my truck that was the size of a loaf of bread. A girl at my high school telling her friend about the time she caught her ex cheating on her. With his 13-year-old sister. She called the cops on him. Probably my mom telling my dad I knew from the very beginning that me, wouldn't amount to anything. She probably said it out of anger and didn't mean it or whatever, but after all these years I can feel my heart sinking whenever I'm reminded of it. When I was 14, I overheard my mom justify going through my college fund to my father by saying, she's never going to be a scholar. Have my BA, MFA, and am taking my prelims for my PhD next week. My mom would usually have her friend over most days and they would sit in the kitchen and talk for hours. Mom's friend was not so recently divorced and was always talking about guys she was seeing on the regular. The dining room table where they'd sit and talk was right under my bedroom, and I'd always drown out their conversations with my stereo or TV. One day I was doing homework and could hear them talking. Mum's friend had a daughter who was around 16 to 17, and the friend was complaining that her daughter had massive breasts and she would get loads of attention, and she hated that all the guys would look at her daughter and not her. The friend then admitted she had been crushing up all kinds of diet pills into her daughter's food to stop her boobs from growing and maybe shrink them. Did you tell the daughter? I was a shy and painfully awkward 12-year-old boy, and she was a popular older girl who hung out with the people who bullied me. I did want to say something to her, but being on the opposite sides of the secondary school social system made it difficult. I'll always regret not having the balls to talk to her about it. I was in the ER due to kidney stones, overheard a man next door wailing because his father suffered from a heart attack during a baseball game they were at. We were at the ball game. Just having a good time. We were just having a good time. For a brief moment I didn't feel pain in my kid. I had to listen to my grandma's wails when we were all told that my dad, her son, was killed in a car accident. Absolute gut-wrenching, primal, horrible sound, still seared into my brain, still gives me nightmares. Please don't drive drunk, or high, or seriously tired, people. Heard upper management talking about who they banged in the office, strippers, and who was on their list to conquer. They forgot I worked on the other side of the wall until I walked around to ask them something. I pretended like I didn't hear anything, but their faces turned white while talking to me. I was gonna keep it to myself, but I guess they got scared and I got let go not too long after that. Sounds like unfair dismissal. What were their grounds to fire you? I got put on a BS performance improvement plan, then laid off. Definitely should have recorded that shit on your phone and used it as blackmail. I would have had everything rolling if I knew they were just gonna blurt that out in the middle of the cubicles. Were you on the list to conquer? Nope. I'm too much of a freak for them. I'm not worth the therapy bill. My, mostly, absentee father was killed by a train when I was 11 the Saturday before Father's Day. The next day I overheard my grandmother, his mother, telling someone on the phone that deputies had walked on either side of the track collecting what was left in 2 body bags. My mother had an old newspaper clipping about her grandfather being hit by a train. The article said there were no pieces bigger than your hand. Old newspapers were wild in the details they gave out, man. I study my family's genealogy, and sometimes it's really shocking how little discretion they had. Have the newspaper articles from when my grandfather's little brother died. They were staying in a hotel in Little Rock and his older sister was playing with a toddler. He fell against the window, the screen fell out, and he went with it. The articles talk about how he hit things on the way down and landed on cement, how their father rushed out of the hotel onto him, and how the little boy was awake and calling for his mother. The next article talks about how he slowly died that afternoon from internal injuries. I can't imagine being a mother and reading that my baby was calling out for me like that. Representing a client in a family law matter when the judge started implying he might give ownership of some vacant land to the ex-wife. Both of the husband and wife were inappropriately well-off druggies and they seemed to be connected with organized crime. I'm just guessing, but that's my theory. During the lunch break, I walked up behind the client in a smoking area and overheard him on the phone saying that he was about to lose the farm, and somebody needs to get out there tonight and start digging and move everything. I was really naive back then, and I thought it was a grow-op for marijuana, and it wasn't until quite a few years later that I realized they were probably talking about dead bodies. Probably less disturbing, more so chilling, saddening. I overheard the conversation between my father when my father decided he was going to stop cancer treatment and was ready to die. I had stopped at their house on my way back from work and a really nasty storm rolled in, so I just spent the night. My mother is pretty hearing impaired, so she speaks loudly. From the guest bedroom I overheard her say, "There is still something we can do." So I went and listened outside their room. It was basically my father telling her that he is tired of the treatments and just wants to go. His cognitive function had already declined so much he didn't feel like himself anymore. We all knew that this was going to happen eventually. He had received a 3-month prognosis and ended up lasting over 2 years. You don't really beat stage 4 brain cancer. So I wasn't disturbed or shocked or anything, just very sad. Mate, if you caught them talking about digging up graves, I don't know if it's a guess anymore. Well, we're never gonna know, because about 3 weeks later the guy dropped dead suddenly from a heart attack. Looking back at the funeral was held quite quickly and I'm not even sure if there was an autopsy. The wife did end up getting the land. After the funeral, I stopped being involved in the case because it was so screwed up. My schizophrenic mother crying about the people in the walls murdering her ex-boyfriend by tearing him apart at 4 a.m. She hadn't talked to the dude since before I was born. I was already into horror/gore stuff as a teen, so it didn't traumatize me quite as much. My schizophrenic mom threw a Christmas party for her friends when I was around 7. Except, her friends had died in a car accident when she was in high school. So it was just her and I there while she conversed and laughed at the party. Sounds like you and I could swap some interesting stories. That sounds somewhat wholesome in a sad, and for a 7-year-old probably very unsettling way. If you want to share some stories, feel free to do so, DM if you prefer it, not in the comments of some post. When my parents' friends went to eat at our house, I went to the bathroom. When I came back, they were talking about how proud they were of my little sister overcoming her school phobia and her depression like a chief. Right after this, they went on me saying they were disappointed in me, that I wasn't doing anything interesting, that I was a bit of a failure. They then talked about how I had gained weight recently. I was much aware of it, but still I don't need other people to bring attention to it. I'm doing what my depressed binge eating ass can. It really broke something in me. This hit hard. I don't usually do this, but I hope things are better for you now. Best wishes from a stranger on the internet. Hello stranger. Thank you for the kind comment. All my family is still going hard on me, but I'm doing my best to not let them grow on me. Kind of hard sometimes, but I'm forcing myself through it, haha. My answer is gonna break your premise because we were absolutely supposed to hear it. I mean, no one ever should have heard it, but Company Commander made damn sure we all did. Late 92, Boot Camp, Orlando, Florida. Homestead, Florida had recently been decimated by a hurricane. Company is at parade rest in the barracks. Waiting to be relieved so we could prep for bed. Someone is crying. Sailors' eyes darting around the room. No one sure what's going on. Company Commander comes screaming out his office, "Who the fuck is crying in my barracks?" No one answers, but you can hear him zero in on the target. Company Commander, "Why the fuck you crying, boy?" Sailor, "I want to go home, sir." Company Commander, "Where you from, son?" Sailor, "Homestead, Florida, sir." Company Commander, "Well shit, son, you ain't got a home to go to." The entire barracks gasped. I did manage to get the Company Commander in some trouble later, but for an unrelated matter. Don't think the kid made it out of boot. Coldest shit I've ever heard. That is some movie level shit. I feel horrible for that sailor. He was not up to speed on anything. However, the whole company became far more tolerant of the kid after that. Silver linings. I've never told anyone this, but when I was 17 my mom drove us to the ER because she wasn't feeling well. Turned out she had diabetes and her sugar was super high. We wait a bit and she starts treatment. All of a sudden I hear beeping and people start rushing in. Someone grabs me and shoves me into a waiting area, but before I'm fully out the door I hear my mom screaming, "I can't breathe, please help me." Those were the last words I heard from my mother. She died the next day. As a 32-year-old diabetic, this horrifies me. When I got older I read through the autopsy report and I guess she had a heart attack due to the stress her body was under. She was taking blood pressure meds for as long as I can remember. Her blood turned super acidic, and her organs shut down. Most likely she was a diabetic for a long time and it finally caught up to her. She really didn't take care of herself. When I was 12, my parents got into a huge argument in front of me. My dad immediately then told me, "I'm going to do something that will make your mom laugh." I begged my dad to not do it. I knew he was going to try to off himself. Don't know why I had the feeling. But he didn't listen and he proceeded to walk into our garage and hang himself. That line, he said, still fucks with me even now at 29. Luckily I had years of therapy and counseling, but Jesus, does that line not stick with me. My dad used to do this too. My parents would fight and he'd go outside in a huff and would say to all of us, "Look outside in about 5 minutes. Your mom's gonna love this." He took his own life when I was a teenager. He did it in private and was found later, but I definitely repressed this memory until I read this comment. I am so sorry to bring back memories like that back for you. I hope you are doing well and got the help you need to get through a memory like that. I hope it doesn't sound bad for me to ask, but did they find out if your dad had any mental health problems? I know for me, the neurologist working my dad's case, my dad didn't die right away. His brain went out and they kept him on life support. He told me that from his history and his medications it sounded like he had bipolar disorder. Probably waking up in the middle of the night when I was 7 hearing my mom's ex-boyfriend beating her. Then hearing him tell her to tell them that she just fell down the stairs. Then the ambulance coming to get her, walking downstairs and seeing her blood all over the place. She had to get staples in her head. I am terribly sorry this happened to you. I hope your family's situation is different now and your mother is okay. Thank you. Luckily we escaped him, but it took years of him stalking our new house, breaking in all the time, robbing us, trying to kidnap my little sister. His biological daughter. We're all safe now. My mom is happily remarried to an amazing man who adopted my half-sister. More sad than disturbing. Was walking down a long hallway to enter the casino at a Las Vegas hotel. Walking towards me was a young couple leaving the casino. The young woman was crying. When they were passing me, I heard the young man say, "Don't worry, sweetheart, we'll figure out how to get the money back somehow." The first time I ever dealt blackjack at the church festival, a young guy lost a decent amount of money at my table, like maybe $100 or more. At the end of the day I saw his wife's face fall and she said, "But the rent is due." I felt really bad. I'm a 911 dispatcher. Once someone's phone had auto-called 911, due to holding down the lock button, and I answered it. I could tell that the phone was in a pocket, but I could still hear talking. The man that had called in was describing someone he had raped in excruciating detail. For the sake of the victim I am not going to go into detail on that, but it was very hard to listen to. Furthermore, he also listed his intentions after the fact. It's one of those where for my job it was important I heard it and that it was on a recorded line, but it still just was insane the detail he went into about it. He was bragging about it to someone, and when he realized he had called 911, he panicked and fled before cops got there. He also gave a fake name. Not sure if he's been caught yet. My mom didn't realize I had come home. I overheard her taking to her sister, "Yeah, Tiff is my defective child. Why am I tell you? You already know that. But maybe she'll amount to something one day." For context, I've had approximately 30 surgeries on my feet, thanks to a birth defect. This one hurts. Oh geez, this just popped in my head, hope that you're on your feet now. I figured I'd just type it, but honestly, no bad intentions, hope you're doing well now. I'm actually doing very well. I'm literally back on my feet, thanks to new orthopedic technology. I'm actually working for the first time after being on disability almost 20 years. I now live 1,324 miles away from her and I'm thriving. My dad is one of those big strong men, who I have never seen cry once. About 10 years ago, my cousin had taken his own life. She had been diagnosed with MS at 21 and was going downhill quickly. She was found by her boyfriend, who called her dad, my uncle. My uncle and my dad had a massive falling out over a business they owned together when I was a kid, but he still called my dad when it happened and asked him to come. A few weeks later, I overheard my dad in absolute hysterics talking to my mom about how the police left my cousin alone in the backyard while they were inside talking to the family, so he went and sat with her body until the coroner got there. I think he still has nightmares. It also made me realize that my dad is not as strong as he likes people to think. He's human. Also, I still can hear my aunt screaming as my cousin's coffin was lowered into the ground. Your dad sounds hella strong. From what you describe, he faces reality, stands up for what matters to him, and finds a way to deal with it. It may be different than how you would, but if it works for him, that's all that matters. He sounds like an admirable person. I definitely didn't mean it as a bad thing. I think it was good to see this side of my dad. How are dad and uncle doing now? They reconciled? They have. They're pretty much best friends again since this. I went to a private Christian junior high and high school. One day before class started, the two younger girls behind me were talking and the principal's daughter said, "I hate it when it hits the back of my throat." It took me a few days to realize that what she was talking about. I was protected while growing up. I wouldn't have even thought of having S at that age. Was this in junior high or high school? I think it was in 8th grade, so junior high. These girls were a year behind me. I overheard two ex-coworkers of mine, sisters who lived together, discussing covering up the fact that one of their sons was a registered S offender, so that he could live with them. Out of curiosity I googled him, and he had done a lot of stuff with girls under 16. And the sisters lived across from a middle school. Someone, me, alerted the building's manager, the school staff, and the local authorities. He was thrown back in prison for several years for breaking parole, failure to update his address, and coming into contact with minors. The sisters were also given several years for aiding and abetting. I shudder to think what might have happened had I not taken my earbuds out that day. I rarely condone snitching, but this definitely qualifies. Good on you. Yeah, if it involves children being harmed, all bets are off. If it was anything else like possession or even burglary he was in prison for, I wouldn't have cared because he served his time. My mother drunkenly saying she regretted having me to some family friends and beating herself up by claiming that she must have done something wrong during her pregnancy with me. All because I turned out the way I did, congenital issues. I heard all of this because I had tiptoed out my room and into the hallway. It was late and I was supposed to be in bed. But my little brothers had come crawling into my bed since the adults were being loud, then requested that I ask them if they could be quiet. I felt like I had to be a good big sister. I didn't get that far. When the adults started laughing again, I snuck back into bed. I was only 8, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. Or forgive her, frankly. Oh my God, I'm sorry but that is a horrible thing to say. Maybe she was just trying to be funny? I don't know. I would hate my mom forever and let her know I heard her say those shitty words. You are a perfect person and don't ever let anyone make you feel bad about yourself. Least of all your mom. Many hugs coming your way from me. She cried after she said it. Even at 8, I could tell it wasn't a joke. Our relationship was full of strife until I became an adult. Now it's pleasant. Thank you for your kind words though. When I was about 10, I was staying with my grandparents for the weekend. I woke up in the middle of the night and heard my grandma's voice coming from the kitchen, so I crept down the hall, thinking maybe she was making a midnight snack and I could join her. But as I got closer, I realized she was crying. I hid around the corner and listened as she talked to my grandpa, her voice breaking, saying, "I'm so tired, I just don't know how much longer I can do this." She started talking about how every month she had to choose between buying her medication or putting enough food on the table, how scared she was that she might leave us with nothing. She whispered, "They don't even know we're barely holding on." I had no idea what she was going through, and hearing her so scared and vulnerable broke something in me. As a kid, I always thought of her as this strong, unshakable figure. But that night, I realized how heavy the weight was that she'd been carrying alone, and how much she had hidden from me to make my world feel safe. To this day, I still remember the sound of her voice and how helpless I felt. I think a part of me grew up in that moment, realizing how sometimes the people we rely on are the ones most in need of someone to rely on. At the laundromat with my mom and one of her close friends, playing with the equipment while they talked to each other and waited for the laundry to finish. They didn't realize I was just around the corner of the machines, listening to their conversation as I played. I wasn't listening on purpose, it was just one of those situations where they were within earshot. My mom started telling her friend how when she told her mom and dad, my grandparents, that she was pregnant with a black man's baby, they offered to pay her for an abortion. They tried and tried to convince her to get one, but thankfully she didn't. I was her first and only daughter. My grandpa has since passed away, but he would always say that I was his favorite grandchild. My grandma, who is still alive and well, loves me very much. And I love them both as well. I'm very glad that they didn't keep that mindset after they met me. Oh, my goodness. That was before they met you. I'm sure they met you and wouldn't give you up for all the money in the world. I sure hope so. They had both been nothing but loving to me since the day I was born. It was at a restaurant. One of those hole-in-the-wall greasy spoon places with tables all crammed together in a tiny little dining room that has food like your ethnicity of choice. Grandma made it. This one was Guatemalan. I'd asked one of my friends to come here and try this place because of how good it was. We pull up in the parking lot, and there aren't a lot of cars. Cool, should get our food all the faster. We go in. There's a party with all their tables haphazardly scooted together in the middle of the dining area and kind of blocking the door. Multiple servers are running back and forth getting them more appetizers, refilling their drinks, etc. It's a boisterous crowd, but my friend and I weren't paying too much attention. It was a mom and pop shop, and maybe they didn't expect so many customers at this time of day. It takes a few minutes, but a waitress comes and seats us. She puts us as far away from this group as she can, which isn't far, because it's a small place. We're in that booth by the fire exit that has the buzzing drink cooler next to it. Kind of subprime seating, but whatever. The dudes in the middle are kind of loud. My buddy and I grab our menus from the little napkin holder thing at the edge of the table, and I start telling him what's good. We decide on what we want while the server is presumably grabbing waters and a bowl of chips and salsa. It's a few extra minutes, which we initially assumed was because they got this large party at an awkward time of day, but as we're talking we start to realize what that big party is talking about and exactly who they are. They're gang members. They're relative newcomers to the area laughing about what they did to establish their presence. They're speaking Spanish, but not the Puerto Rican Spanish I'm used to or the more Californio Spanish my friend was used to. They were laughing about cutting some guy up. And what they did to his girlfriend. They were joking with each other about what pretty girls all the servers were. The owner's family, I found out later, and how they wouldn't be pretty for long if they weren't buenas chicas, good girls. My friend and I made eye contact across the table in a moment of pure, what the fuck? He's lily white, and I can pass. They very obviously had no idea we could understand them, although not fluently. Whatever their dialect was made it like we were processing on a delay and kind of guessing at some stuff, and I can't imagine they'd see us as a threat if they'd guessed the truth. We were a nerdy middle-aged white dude and a short-ass woman who walks with a cane. We felt so bad for those servers, but there was literally nothing we could do. If we let on that we knew what was happening, it'd be that much worse for all of us. We had a brief text conversation under the guise of scrolling on our phones while we waited for our food, and we agreed that if we just left some money and cleared out, the servers or the restaurant might face some kind of retribution later. My buddy wrote, "Are you okay?" on his napkin and flashed it at our server when she brought our food. She just smiled and kinda fakey laughed and gave us a waist-level thumbs up. He pretended to sneeze in the napkin later so no one would care if he put it in his pocket. I can't even tell you what my buddy and I talked about. We ate our food without tasting it, listening the whole time to the horrible things these men said. They bragged about killing and raping people, how they begged, the noises they made, what their family did, what they did to the families. They talked about drug deals and trafficking. I don't know if all of it really happened, or if half of it was bragging and wishful thinking or what, but there was a very strong vibe in the room that we were not safe if we let on that we weren't just two ignorant whiteys at the Greasy Spoon downtown. We finished our food and declined dessert and got the fuck out of there. I hope you made some sort of anonymous call to the police or federales or something about that trash. Police non-emergency line. They asked me if I saw anyone get hurt, and seemed disinterested once I said no. Maybe they dismissed it as a bunch of dudes swapping lies, or maybe nothing I'd heard was useful to them. I dunno. This is kind of a Hickville Midwestern town. We don't even have the level of gang activity that you'd see in Minneapolis or Omaha, much less a larger city. When gang violence does happen, it's mostly centered on drug supply stuff. The guys my friend and I overheard were probably from a bigger city and only here to establish their supply route and local dealers. I think if men like that were seen more frequently around town, my friend and I would have spotted them for what they were before we even sat down and just chosen another restaurant that day. Have you gone back there and talked with the waitresses? Not to snoop, but kind of make sure they're not scarred with nervousness from that experience? I've been back many times. That was the owner's family being harassed. The poor ladies were so scared, but whoever was managing told them to just smile and be the good girls right now, because you did not want people like that getting mad at you. My friend and I had dreamed up all kinds of stories about what had been going on in there that day, like if they were planning to extort protection money from the restaurant, or if the restaurant was really a money laundering front or whatever, but it really was just a mom and pop shop that had the horrible misfortune of being a place where a bunch of very dangerous men decided to have lunch.